This, as mentioned, it's a cross collaboration between the community council and the government, schools and after schools, and the healthcare domain. And we all have some goals related to this project. So I'll go down each of our domains and kind of explain what each will be focusing on. In terms of the community council, they were really, led the effort of determining the parks to prioritize, and they will also be leading the park and walk audit. As for the government domain, we will be providing technical assistance and training for the park and walk audits, and this is really with Kristin from Alta Planning leading those efforts. But then we'll also be focusing on connecting with decision makers so that, we can get these recommendations elevated to the change makers. And then in terms of the schools and after school domain, we are connecting with school partners and improving the routes between schools and parks. And then lastly, with the healthcare domain, one of their goals is to improve at least one park with family-friendly improvements. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of the park audit plan, we first started with developing a list of potential parks through the input of the community council, the domain working groups, and the available community data that we had. We also cross-referenced this list with SANDAG's Safety Focus Network and really highlighted parks that are near community schools. And we aligned the criteria for the park prioritization by looking at if it's within half a mile of a school in a low-income neighborhood and if they had a high percentage of youth below the ages of 18 in the surrounding community. Next slide, please. So in terms of what's next, we will be facilitating 3 park and walk audits over the next year, starting with Memorial Park in Logan Heights, with the park audit planned in September. And then we'll also be working on 2 more parks that will be selected by the community council. Also really focusing our efforts on refurbishing 1 park and then advocating for improvements to the parks and routes to create more spaces for safe physical activity. So we're really first highlighting Memorial Park and, looking at the work being done near Memorial Park, we saw that there was a lot of intersections in the surrounding area. That was a top priority for the CPED Coalition. And for those of you who don't know, the CPED Coalition is a coalition that is facilitated by Circulate San Diego. It's from a grant with the County of San Diego, the Racial and Ethnic Approaches to Community Health, which is a CDC grant. And that project also focuses on safe and equitable access to parks and everyday destinations. So through the work that that coalition has done, as well as Circulate San Diego in their assessment, they also aligned in wanting Memorial Park as the top priority park for now, and really looking at the intersections on National Avenue and South 28th Street, as well as 28th Street and Ocean View Boulevard. In terms of, just like crash data history and just accidents that have happened, a reason why we do want to prioritize these intersections is first looking at the National Avenue and South 28th Street. On August 1st, 2024, a 49-year-old woman was killed in a hit-and-run crash while walking through this intersection at night. And she was crossing in a marked crosswalk and was struck by a man making a left turn from westbound National Avenue to 28th Street. And this intersection marks a transition from neighborhood streets to busier truck routes and is the approximate halfway point between Harborside Station and Memorial Community Park. And then looking at the 28th and Ocean View Boulevard, this intersection on the northwest corner of Memorial Community Park Complex, it provides access to Logan Memorial Educational Campus, the Logan Heights Library, and the MTS bus stop for Route 3. And then also just historically, an elderly pedestrian was visibly injured by a driver violating traffic signals at this intersection back in 2023. And also a bicyclist was minorly injured in a crash 1 block south of the intersection of 28th Street and Harrison Avenue in 2024. So, looking at that, we are also seeing that Harrison Avenue has some of the lowest walking trip volumes within a quarter mile of the Memorial Community Parks, and improvements in this vicinity could really increase pedestrian activity in a safe manner. So that's a little bit more on, the data really backing up this effort of why we are choosing this as a priority in this project. So I'll go ahead and go on to the next slide, please. I also just wanted to highlight the key partners for the Memorial Park Walk Audit. Really close by to the park, there's the Rodriguez Elementary. We also have partners at Logan Heights CDC, the City of San Diego Parks and Recreation, and Caltrans. So in terms of next steps, we want to connect with the elected officials in the area. And we also wanted to, come to this group and ask if there are partners that you don't see on this list that you think that we should connect with. And if you do have feedback on that, we will be dropping Gabriel's email as well as the Eventbrite link for the park audit, I believe. Yes, okay. And then I'm handing it back to Gabriel.
Thank you, Alondra, and thank you. Yes, if you have any suggestions for any partners that we should connect with, please let us know. And for now, I do want to hand it off to our schools and after schools co-chairs, Deirdre, to share a little bit about the relationship that we've been developing with Rodriguez Elementary. Deirdre, can I hand it off to you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Gabriel. Yeah, Rodriguez Elementary School is part of the San Diego Promise Zone, and that is a group of schools that the city of San Diego is kind of providing extra focused support, not just the schools, but that whole zone. And these schools in particular have gardens that are pretty well established and are supported through a farm to school grant that the San Diego Unified School District Food Nutrition Services received from the state of California. And they work with Leah's Pantry which is, I guess, the fiscal agent for the grant as well, to actually implement garden education and other types of nutrition education and support Harvest of the Month activities, things like that at this group of about, I think it's like 12 schools. And so it's great to work with a school that already has some positive things happening. And they have a new principal this year. Principal Love is her name, and she has a lot of great energy and ideas for what she wants to do with the school. And we were able to meet with a school counselor yesterday, who's been with the school 4 years and had some great insight into some of the routes that students might take, some of the areas that perhaps could use improvement, and subsequently invited us to come to a Family Friday to talk about the park and school audits that we would like to do. So is that pretty much covered what you wanted me to cover there, Gabe?
Yeah, thank you so much, Deirdre. Cheryl, I see your hand.
Yeah, hi. This is really very interesting to hear the developments here. I was just wondering, are there any parent partners, like parent organizations or parent groups that are partnered here, as just thinking about the question of, are there partners you should connect with?
Great question. I should have mentioned that, because when we met with the counselor yesterday, that was one of the questions that we had for her. And they have a, I guess, a kind of a parent liaison at the school who is interested in getting a more active group of parents together. And this could be a great kind of first activity for them to participate in. So that's one of the reasons we were invited to come to the Family Friday event and talk about what we want to do and invite parents to participate. So it's not necessarily an established active group, but it's one that they would like to get going. And this could be a really good way to kind of catalyze and focus on a particular project, which is always a great way to get people involved.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And for folks, if there's anybody that in this area or any partners that are doing work in this area that you're interested in us collaborating with for this project, please drop it in the chat or send me an email. I'll drop my email shortly. But for now, we want to talk about what's coming up next. Can you see the graphic, or is it coming up as a question mark?
We
We
can
can see it.
Okay, perfect. On my display, it comes up as you can't see it, but okay, cool. So for what's coming up next, we have a COI in Action Park and Walk Audit all partner convening. So this is going to be an opportunity for us to meet up, do a park audit around Memorial Park, as well as do a walk audit between the park and Rodriguez Elementary, just to ensure safe routes to the park for the children that reside both in that neighborhood, Logan Heights, and that attend Rodriguez Elementary. The date for this event will be September 24th from 11:30 to 1:30 p.m. And as I mentioned, we'll be meeting at the Logan Heights Public Library. Jackie will be dropping the Eventbrite link for you all to register and to save the date on your end. We're really excited for you all to be there. Boxed lunches will be provided at the end. And in preparation for this park and walk audit, we will be having a training that will be facilitated by our very own government domain co-chair, Kristin Haukom. So with that in mind, Kristin, I'm going to hand it off to you and stop share for y'all.
Sure. You had me at box lunch. I mean, that's definitely, I was going to go anyways, be there anyways, obviously, but very excited about that. Thank you. All right. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay, cool. So just to kick off Parks 101, this is very similar if you've participated in a walk audit presentation training. This is very similar with a little extras. So I hope you're interested in learning more. But I wanted to start off with why me? Why am I giving this park audit training? Well, I'm a 20+ year public health practitioner and an active transportation planner. And I've led hundreds of audits, whether they be space audits, walk audits, location audits, park audits. And my specialty is translating community input into actionable and feasible projects. So listening to what stakeholders really want and turning that into something that's possible. And then my firm, who I work with, are a bunch of talented planners, engineers, landscape architects, educators, graphic designers, outreach specialists who really specialize in activating spaces, making active transportation a fun and easy choice, sustainable mobility, and placemaking, which I'll share more about in a little bit. So why are we doing these park audits? And I apologize if I say walk audits. I'm used to saying walk audits more than park audits, so I apologize. We're talking about park audits here. An audit or assessment of a location is the easiest and fastest way to assess an area for walkability, safety, comfort, and access. It's a tool. It's a tool that community members can use. It empowers them to take notes, take photos, and really assess a location and share it with decision makers. And the good news is anyone can do it. There's no magic to it. It really is quite simple. What's the purpose? It's to identify barriers to using the park for its intended purpose, identifying any missing or wanted amenities, and documenting any safety issues or concerns. I'm sharing this graphic with you because we're all here for one reason, is we really care about the health of our children, young adults, and talking about park audits, talking about park locations. Really, we're talking about the built environment. And the built environment ties very closely to how healthy a community is and ultimately how healthy people are. I borrowed this graphic from the California Office of Health Equity, but it's just a really good example of all the things that go into making people and their communities and their environment healthy. All right, so let's get into it. Again, this is very similar to a walk audit training. If you've participated, you'll see some of the same language, some of the same graphics, but it's a couple of tweaks for you. So questions you should be thinking about before you go on your walk audit is to think about the goal. And for us as practitioners, we may be using a walk audit as an outreach engagement event. I actually really like, Deirdre, what you just said about parents, using this as a project that brings parents together and getting them thinking about the health and wellness of their children, and a combined project they can work out together. And then for us as also as planners, we might be ground truthing something. So I spend a lot of time looking at maps on a screen, but there's nothing like getting there in person and really seeing if what I'm seeing on the screen is what's happening in the actual space. And then really getting input from park stakeholders. What do people want to see? What makes them feel comfortable? What makes them feel unsafe? And documenting that. You already saw a map of the location, but for today's presentation, I'm using the example. I'm using a Google Earth shot of Memorial Park in Logan Heights. So step one of a park audit is to identify our location, which we have done through a lot of great input from various stakeholders and data sources. The next is to identify participants. And this is really anybody, any stakeholders, community members, residents, city, county staff, teachers, students, et cetera, anyone who has an interest in the location. Then you're going to select a day and time. And for our park audit in September, we have chosen middle of the day, which is great because plenty of light. It's time where people might be actually using the park, so we can see that as well. And then you're going to gather your materials. Want an aerial map is helpful. I just screenshot from Google Earth or Google Maps, a clipboard and pen if you're taking notes, a camera, your phone, a checklist, which is optional. I'll share a little bit about that in the next slide. And then I recommend that people who are actually conducting the audits wear a reflective vest so that they are visibly seen by others. Just want to point out this is optional, a checklist, not needed at all, but I told Gabrielle that I would share a resource just for the purposes of having something for folks to look at, maybe review before the audit itself. This is from Active Living Research, and it's a pretty comprehensive list. I'll drop the link in the chat after my presentation for you to take a look at. There's also a lot of other resources out there for park audit tools. Also Walk Sacramento, which is not called Walk Sacramento anymore, but they also have some resources. All right, now you get to conduct the park audit. And here are some observational prompts. So again, I don't necessarily think you need a checklist, but these are things you should be thinking about when you go to a park audit. I do recommend at least one person is taking notes. So you don't all have to take notes. It's actually probably easier for just one to document and listen and take notes for what people are sharing. But first question might be, what do you notice? Like what sticks out to you? And this is really about like, how are you experiencing the space? What feels unsafe? And we're going to really dive into that feeling in just a moment, because this is actually can determine behavior, how a space is used, and how people want to use a space. We'll talk about that. It's not necessary to document all existing or non-existing conditions. For example, if there's issues, no play equipment, drinking fountain, restrooms, et cetera. But if it helps to tell the story and make a point, you want to include that information. For example, this space doesn't feel like someplace, this isn't the space I want to go to because the bathrooms don't work. So I'm not going to bring my children to this one, something like that. And you shouldn't have to worry about finding a solution. I've spent time on walk audits where people are really caught up in like, but I don't know how to fix it. That's not your job. At least you're not your job in the observation phase. You just really want to document what you're seeing. But of course, if you have an idea, write it down. And that's something that could be a point of discussion later. Do document any anecdotes. So anything that you know about the history of the location. Maybe there was a recent mugging, maybe some child got hurt on the play equipment, something like that. Do write that stuff down. And then you want to document anything that impacts the location's use, whether it's intended use or not intended use, such as trash, stray dogs, unhoused people, alcohol or drug use, blind spots, lack of shading and seating. So leaning into that last slide's prompt about what feels unsafe, I'm going to kind of pause a moment through the steps and talk a little bit about this feeling of unsafe. So in general, a location's amenities can impact how real or perceived people feel or have fear about a location. So this could be if plants or trees aren't cut back, if there are physical barriers such as fencing that may prevent line of sight. There's a lot of vandalism, or if it's unclean and not well maintained, that might make someone feel uncomfortable because it means it's not being used the way it's supposed to be used. The layout and circulation of a space might affect its use. And if there's enough lighting, you're not going to want to go there during certain times of day. If there are a lot of people or few people, that might make you feel safe and welcome. If there's more people. And then the types of use, if there's a different variety for maybe younger children, older children, and for adults. Public art is something that when it's in a space might have a tendency to make people feel more comfortable and welcome. And then if there's line of sight, if there's parts of the space that are obstructed, that might give you a feeling of being enclosed in and not comfortable. And then adjacent land use can affect like a park's use or comfort, feeling of comfort. For example, if it's next to a school, that might make people feel more welcome as opposed to being right next to a liquor store. You don't have to answer the question out loud or even in the chat, but I just wanted you in your own mind kind of sit on these two images and ask yourself which park feels safer. So I'm just going to give you a moment just to look at both images and just kind of to think what feels more welcoming, what feels safer. Okay, I'm going to point out a couple things. So the image on the left is an open park, beautiful vegetation, a dad with his kids, scootering, people and families walking, enjoying the space. And the image on the right-hand side, the grass isn't really there. There's play equipment, but you can't really see it, and it's dark. So in general, the one on the left-hand side of the screen is most comfortable and inviting to people, to most people. And the one on the right is probably less so. Here are another couple images for you to think about. So which trail feels safer? And I'm using quotations on purpose because these are very subjective to different people. So it's really what you're feeling about a space. So take a moment, look at these two images. So in general, the image on the left is probably feels safer and is more inviting. And that's because clear lines of sight, lots of people using the location. There's not a lot of shrubbery kind of crowding into the trail. And then on the right-hand side, while it's a beautiful vegetation, there's not a clear line of sight. You see a kind of a turn corner where you can't quite see what's coming up. And also, you can't see through the vegetation. So these are just some subtle cues in environments that might impact how someone feels about a space. So I'm going to discuss now this concept of crime prevention through environmental design. And it's really, this is information I'm sharing with you to think about when you are doing the park audit, which of these elements might impact or could help make the park feel real or perceived, safer, and want people to participate and activate the park. So crime prevention through environmental design is also called CPTED. So if you want to impress your family and friends, you use CPTED to describe this concept. It was coined in 1971 by a criminologist, C. Ray Jeffries. And the concept is behind CPTED is that proper design and the effective use of the built environment can lead to a reduction in the incidence of fear, again, real or perceived, of crime, and thereby improve quality of life. There are 4 main categories that CPTED is broken up into, and I'll describe those in the next slide. Natural surveillance refers to the use of uses the placement of physical features, activities, and people to maximize visibility. Strategies include landscaping, lighting, placement, seating, reduced placement of ads in retail windows and transit stops. So really think about, we call it eyes on the street, like things are visible, everybody's watching, you can see what's going on. Natural access control uses design of walking paths, landscaping, building orientation to guide people through a space, and identifies points of entry, such as this park monument entry. These strategies include wayfinding, celebrated points of entry, and clearly marked public pathways and entrances. So one thing that I was thinking about as I was putting together these slides, and I remembered, is that when IKEA first opened up in San Diego, I'm probably dating myself, people felt trapped because there was no clear lines to get through this enormous space. And so they've gotten a lot better. They've used wayfinding, directional arrows to help people go through the store. A similar example as with natural access control. Territorial reinforcement. This supports clear definition of public, semi-public, and private property. And these strategies include fencing, pavement, treatment, signage, and landscaping. So showing where spaces, anybody's welcome, showing where limited use for certain activities, and then where private property actually starts. And then maintenance. Maintenance is about the routine maintenance of a space or property, creating a sense of ownership that deters crime. So if a space is well maintained, it shows to be better used and more likely to be used for its intended use. And these strategies include regular trimming and care for the landscape, not to obstruct views, upkeep of building structures, functional lighting, and really for parks and retail spaces can benefit greatly with having a park maintenance or space maintenance plan. So to sum up SEPTED, the philosophy, the goal is to reduce opportunities for crime that might be inherent in the design of structures, neighborhoods, or public spaces. And the goal is accomplished only through the embodiment so if you're actually doing SEPTED implementation, you want a practitioner, but done in conjunction with community members. So it's done with them and not to them. And this could all be done with the planning, development, and the design of some community projects, which is really the goal of what we're hoping to come out of all these park audits we're doing. Switching gears just a little bit, I mentioned placemaking in the beginning of my presentation, and SEPTED placemaking is very similar to SEPTED. Placemaking describes the process of creating squares, plazas, parks, streets, and waterfronts to attract people because they're pleasurable or interesting. The concept originated in 1960s by writers Jane Jacobs and William H. White when they offered groundbreaking ideas about designing cities that were catered to people and not cars and shopping centers. We're still working on that, but the example on your screen shows an alley, which is kind of dingy and not as inviting. And then on the other side is an example where someone activated the space by putting in these cool umbrellas, seating, plants, and activating means that you want activity to happen. You want people to come in and use the space and enjoy the space. Here's another example of placemaking. This is just a street. And then on the bottom part of the screen is where it was turned into a pedestrian plaza, which means people are free to walk around, roll around, enjoy some outdoor seating, go to their favorite grocery store or cafe, and they're protected from, or spaces designated for pedestrian and not for car use. Some more fun examples, because I just love placemaking so much. Top left-hand corner of your screen is some movable play equipment that kids can use because they put into a closed street event, moved around and create play equipment. Similar on the right-hand, top right-hand, I don't even know what you call it, but something for kids to play with that can be, it's movable and you can bring in and out of a space. Bottom right is a colorful crosswalk, just something fun for people to enjoy and notice. And then on the lower left-hand side of your screen is this is part of Go Human, which is a initiative that's in the just northwest of Los Angeles, where they bring out seating to turn a parking spot into a place where people can sit and enjoy their lunch. Fresh, hot off the presses, this is something we recently did, Alta, our team did in San Mateo County just this past weekend, where we brought placemaking to a school. So this is a school in the county of San Mateo unincorporated, and the team painted an intersection mural. This is the logo of the school, so beautiful. What this does, it brands the location. It shows that this is a space that is loved and cherished by the school community. It also has a tendency to slow down drivers because there's something happening in the roadway that is not typically there. So a great example of placemaking. Okay, getting back to our steps. Step 6 is to share your findings. This is a picture of me doing a presentation to City Council in Oceanside. You do not need to do a presentation to City Council or Board of Supervisors, but just to point out that you do want to share your findings with someone and the decision makers. And fortunately, our COI backbone team and all of you have opportunities that we'll be able to take what we learn at the park audit and share those with decision makers. In summary, stakeholders are key to gathering the information that decision makers need. And we all help to promote and prioritize those investments. City officials, jurisdictional staff, they don't always know what the community needs. They're sometimes just playing whack-a-mole, responding to the loudest squeaky squeal. But having this collective opportunity for us to pull together our thoughts and ideas and share with our government stakeholder or government officials is really, really exciting. And I'm looking forward to what comes next. As a planning and design practitioner, I can help bridge the language between stakeholders and government agencies and can marry that community vision with what's possible, but we are not needed. We're helpful, but not needed. You can go straight, stakeholders can go straight to government agencies so that they can receive that input, identify resources, and help implement those projects. I am done with my presentation, but I would love to answer any questions or have a discussion that anything you might have.
Kristin,
Yeah.
Mary Beth, well
Yeah.
done.
Thanks.
Such great work, and it was such a great presentation.
Oh, thank you.
One of the things as we start this from the outset is also to consider how it's going to be maintained. And what brought this to mind was that intersection mural, which are beautiful. I love that. But I know in Linda Vista, when we did one, maintaining it is an issue. And that's very true for a park. So as we develop this park, perhaps we could also begin to think about who wants to adopt that park and maintain it and make sure it's loved.
I love that. Thank you for saying that. And yes, intersection murals, I didn't share the second photo, which was there's actually marks already on the intersection mural. I will just comment on that really quickly is we've done intersection murals as a demo project basically. And then we've had, once it looks good and people like it, the city has actually gone in with thermoplasty. So the same stuff that's used for permanent crosswalks to make it permanent. It costs a lot more money, full disclosure, but that is one way to keep it more permanent. And then the maintenance plan, I think that's something that we were thinking about. I don't know, Gabrielle or Alondra, do you have any thoughts about or anybody else from COI, have we talked about maintenance? I feel like that came up because you're right. I mean, we can do a lot of great stuff, but if it's not maintained, that's an issue. Okay, we will keep that in mind and plan for that. Thank you, Mary Beth, for sharing. Cheryl, do you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I have both a comment and a question. Phenomenal presentation, and just seeing like the public health approach like come through your steps and the process is just lovely. I was just thinking about how do you champion and continue to champion this? I think the question that was just asked about the sustainability and kind of who picks it up and loves it and cares for it moving forward is linked to this idea of, champions who are generally aware of past work, right? There for the current work, right, and willing to keep the momentum so that the future work doesn't fall short. And so just, thinking about other public health challenges around the county and region, I thought it would be helpful for us to hear, like, who are you leaning on for championing these beautiful successes, such that, again, we can honor the past and make sure the future still looks bright?
Wonderful comment, wonderful question. I'm going to open it up to everybody. I have thoughts, but I don't want to be the only one speaking. Okay, chime in if you have something. This is, okay, I'll say it this way. So I've been a part of the COI, COIP for 20 years, since its inception. And I didn't see much movement when I kind of left for a bit and came back, and I didn't see much had changed until UCSC took it on. And I'm saying that because, one, I want to say UCSC, you're doing a fantastic job, but what you've done is you've brought together partners in such a nice way that I think we're just at the beginning of some really great stuff. So I see that this is just beginning, and I see that we're already making connections with city staff, county staff who are like starting to listen. And I hate to say it like that because there's nothing wrong with our jurisdictional staff. They're amazing. They're wonderful. They're doing great public service. But it's these conversations, it's getting kind of having this collective voice with all these partners. I really see some things starting to happen, and see things where what we do is not going to just go away. We spoke, I don't know if Gabrielle and Alondra, I can't remember if we're going to talk about this, but the three of us spoke last week at the Caltrans Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting. And that had never happened before. So this initiative that's been happening in the county for almost 20 years, we got in front of the BPAC, Caltrans BPAC, and shared with them what we're doing. And that group is made up of people who are the decision makers of the things we're trying to do. So I see the conversations happening. I'm not promising, a ton, but I'm saying that I really do see, like never before, that the work we do will be picked up by champions, will be picked up by people, will take ownership, jurisdictions will take ownership. I hope that helped address some of your comments, questions. It's a great conversation, and I'm really glad you started it, and we should continue talking about it because it's really important.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thanks everybody for your thoughts and your comments. Thanks for being here and listening. I appreciate it. And I will drop the tool, the walk audit tool checklist in the chat, and I'll also drop my contact information if you have any follow-up questions after today's presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristin. That was a great presentation. I'm super excited for the upcoming park walk audit.